Hey, awesome people. Welcome back to our newest concept. We have just gotten started with fractions. This is our second fractions video. I'm Mr. C. Super pumped that you are here with us. I gave this disclaimer in the first video. If you don't have a new notebook for this series, you're gonna need it. We've got so much to cover in fractions, and I am really excited because there's so much important information with fractions and knowing fractions and why they're important, and we're going to get into all of that. But I'm super pumped that you're here as we continue our journey of making math understandable and challenging. So if you haven't, make sure you click the like and subscribe button. Would love to have you continue this journey with us. Look me up on Instagram at mathwithmrc and Twitter as well. Okay. With that being said, this is our second video for second grade learning standards, and there they are on the screen. I went over them in the first one. It's got a lot of big words like partition. It's got things like describing, using the words halves, thirds, half of, third of. We're going to be breaking all of that down. If you didn't get a chance, make sure you watch the first video. It kind of gets our feet wet, gets us started with these second grade learning standards. I'll also put that video in the description below so you can check that out. We've got third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, and so on and so forth. We've got a lot of things we have to cover with fractions. They are very, very important, and we're going to start with it all the way back here in second grade. With all that being said, again, thanks for joining us. Click the like and subscribe button. Let's get started with our very first problems of the day. All right, so what shape do I have on the screen right now? I already know. You know what it is. It's a circle. All right, my first question for you is, how many sections did I break this circle into? All right, how many sections did I break this circle into? Okay, take a look at it. How many sections do you see? I see one section, two sections. All right, I have broken this into two equal, they're the same size, sections. Okay, whenever you break something into two equal groups, you're dividing that or breaking that into a word that we call is halves. Okay, halves. Or another way you could hear it said is you've broken it in half. Has anybody ever had a chocolate bar, like a Hershey's chocolate bar, and you've broken it in half? Hopefully it was to share with somebody, but a lot of times I'll just break it in half and then eat it later on because I love chocolate. But either way, when you break something in half, you're breaking it in two equal sections. Okay, that's what we're doing here. When we break this into half, into two sections, we're breaking it into halves, two equal sections. Okay, now let me show you another example here. This time I'm going to put a rectangle up here. Give me a second. So let's get a rectangle drawn, and I'm going to break it up into some sections for you. All right. So we've got a rectangle, and let's say I break it up into a couple of sections. I need to move that one over just a little bit. Thank you for your patience, you wonderful people. There we go, that looks better. All right, so my question to you here is, how many sections have I broken this rectangle up into? How many sections? 3. All right, there are 3 sections. Here's the first section, here's the second section, here's the third section. So let's go back to our chocolate bar, our candy bar. If we were to break that into 3 equal sections, again, that's really important, they're equal sections. Each section is an equal amount. They're all the same. All right, they're all the same size. If we do that, that means we have broken it into the word thirds. Thirds. Thirds means that you've broken it into 3 equal sections. Okay, when you hear the word thirds, I want you to think of as 3 equal sections. So we had halves, halves, that's when we break it into 2 sections. We have thirds when we break it into 3 sections. I bet you can guess what would happen if we break it into 4 sections. Okay, let's go back to our circle example. Okay, so with our circle here, let's break it into 4 sections. Grab our circle. All right, so let's break our circle here into 4 sections. There we go. All right, that was a bad first line. Goodness. Here we go. All right, so I've taken this circle and I have broken it into 4 sections. Okay, 1 section, 2 sections, 3 sections, 4 sections. Now, if we were to say, I don't know, I'm gonna think pizza because it's dinner time in my house and I'm craving some pizza, and I'm, who doesn't want pizza? But if I break this pizza into 4 sections, 1, 2, 3, 4, does anybody know what we would call that? We had fancy words for the other ones. We had halves for 2 sections. We had thirds for 3 sections. Well, for 4 sections, it's a word that looks like this. Does anybody know what that word is? You can probably sound it out. Let's take a look at it. We've got fourths. Fourths. All right, fourths. That's the word. So when you see an object like a pizza cut into 4 equal sections, that means you have broken it into fourths. You have divided it into fourths. Take a look here. We had halves when we broke it up into 2 equal sections. Then for thirds, there we go. With thirds, we broke it into 3 equal sections. We divided it into 3 equal sections. And with fourths, we divided it into 4 equal sections. All right, and that's really important to know. If you can understand that about fractions, it just keeps going. When it gets to 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way and so forth, it just keeps going. But we're just going to focus on halves, thirds, and fourths. Okay, halves, thirds, and fourths. Go back and watch this section again if you need to. Okay, go back and watch it. See if you get stuck anywhere, something doesn't make sense. And then I'm going to put a couple of examples up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a figure and color it, part of it in. And I want you to tell me how many sections there are and how many of those sections are colored in. All right, so rewatch it and then we'll try this next part. All right, I've got a problem up here on the board for you, or on the screen. And first thing I want you to do is just tell me how many sections are there. Okay, how many equal sections have I divided this rectangle into? So I've taken a whole rectangle, one whole, and I have divided that rectangle into equal sections. Now, how many equal sections have been created? Pause it for a second, give it a shot, but there should be 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, there are 4 equal sections on this example problem. Okay, I took this rectangle, this whole rectangle, one whole, and I divided it into 4 equal sections. Now, how many of those sections did I color in? How many of those sections did I color in? How many do you see? 2. I colored in this one, and I colored in this one. So I colored in 2 of the 4. So let me write that. I colored in 2 out of 4. That's how many I colored in. Would you agree with that? Did I color in 2 out of the 4 total? Yeah, I did. Now, let me show you how that's written as a fraction. How many did you say there were total? How many equal sections are there total? 4. Yeah, there are 4 sections total. I wrote that number, and if you remember from our first video, in the denominator. The denominator tells me how much I have total. How many sections are there total? How many equal groups did we divide it in total? Okay. Now, the number I'm going to write on top is going to be how much we've colored in. So how many of these sections have we colored in? 2. And if you remember from our first video, that is called the numerator. And we're going to talk about numerators and denominators more and more. But we've got 2 out of 4 colored in. I colored in 2 sections. That's where we got this 2. And then there were 4 equal sections total. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's how we got our fraction of, does anybody know how to say this? This is a good one. This is a really good one. Do you know how to say this? We say this as 2. So say that number. 2. And then do you remember what we just did in the problem before? What happens? What do we say if we break it into 4 sections? If we break it into 4 sections, what does that say? Fourths. Fourths. So let's put all that together. We've got 2 fourths. 2 fourths. All right, it's a little bit tricky. All right, it's a little bit tricky. I'm going to give you another problem. All right, I'm going to give you another problem. So this one is 2 fourths. Same thing on this next one. I'm going to put a picture up, color in some of the sections, tell me how many sections there are total, how many groups we have total, and then we'll talk about it and see if we know how to say it correctly. All right, I've got a circle on the screen here for you. And before you start taking a look and working through it, I just want to point out, I know some of y'all are probably jealous of my amazing coloring skills. So I understand, I know you're jealous, I get it, believe me. But hey, a little bit of practice so you can be as good at coloring as I am. All right, now back into the math, So I have a circle here. First thing I want you to do is tell me how many sections do we have? Okay, how many equal groups did I divide this circle into? The circle was one whole, and I divided it into how many groups? Well, I've got one group here, and I've got a second group here. So I have divided this circle into 2 equal groups. Okay, 2 equal groups. Now, if I were to write that as a fraction, where would I write that information at? If I have 2 equal groups, how many groups did we divide this circle into? 2. And I would write that information in our denominator. All right, it's a tough word, but denominator. Denominator tells us how many sections we have total. All right, how many do we divide it up equally into? Okay, so we took one whole circle, we divided it into 2 equal sections. Now, how many sections did I color in? How many sections did I color in? Yes, you are correct. I colored in 1 section, and I write that 1 at the top of the fraction. And does anybody remember what the number at the top of the fraction says? What's the name for it? It's the numerator. Numerator. And numerator tells us how much we actually have. All right, so in this problem, we have 1 section. How many sections were there total? There are 2 sections. How many do we have? We have 1 section. So let's see if we can understand what this means. Okay, what this means is that we, in this problem, have 1 out of 2. If we were to have a pizza here, and let's imagine this is a pizza, and we cut it right down the middle, and we broke it into 2 equal groups, and I gave you one of those groups, that means that you had 1 out of 2. All right? With this fraction, and with fractions, we just did a problem where we were talking about fourths, because we took a figure and we broke it up into 4 sections. Now we took a circle and we broke it up into 2 sections. Does anybody know how to say this fraction, though? Do you know how to say this fraction? All you gotta do is say this number on the top. So say the number 1, and then how do we say it if it has 2 sections? Do you remember? Let's go back and look. If we break it into 2 sections, we're going to say it as halves or half. Okay, we're going to say it as halves or half. So let's go down to our problem here. What we have is 1 half, all right, or 1 halves, all right. A lot of times you'll hear people say 1 half. So to say this one, 1 half, because we have 1 out of 2. That's another way you can say it. All right, another way I always teach students to say it too is you can imagine this line right here. You can imagine, let me get my pink mouse up, there you go. This line right here as a division, okay? You can say it as 1 divided by 2, but I always tell students 1 half is the way you're always gonna hear people say it, but it's good to know kind of what it means. All right, so 1 half, 1 out of 2, that's how many you would have, okay? I've got one more for you. Okay, rewatch this one if you need to. I've got one more for you. I'm going to put another figure up here. We're going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to color in more than you've seen so far. All right, so a little bit of a challenge here for you. All right, we're back at it with my incredible coloring skills here. I've got a rectangle, one whole rectangle, and I want you to tell me how many sections I've broken this rectangle into. How many equal sections have we divided this rectangle into? All right, how many equal sections have we divided this rectangle into? Hopefully you see that we have 1 section, 2 sections, 3 sections. All right, where do I write that information for a fraction? Where do I write that information at? Am I writing that as the numerator or as the denominator? For this purpose, it is the denominator, because that's what I asked. How many sections do we have total? How many sections do we divide this rectangle into equally? We took one whole rectangle, the whole rectangle, and we divided it into 1 section, 2 sections, 3 sections. All right. Now here's my challenge for you. You're probably looking at this and thinking to yourself, Mr. C, you colored in all 3 of the sections. And what I got to tell you is you are exactly right. I did. I colored in all 3 sections. 1, 2, 3. I colored in all 3 sections. My numerator is 3 because that's how many I've colored in. That's how many we have. Total, there were 3 sections, and how many sections do we have colored in? We have 3 sections colored in. So, what does that mean though for our fraction? Look at this fraction over here. We've got the same number as the numerator and the denominator. We've got 3 out of 3. Now, how in the world do I say that? How in the world do I say that? Well, say the top number, 3. And if we've divided into 3 equal sections, what do we say when we divide it into 3 equal sections? Let's go back and look. Let's go back to what we did right at the beginning. If we broke it into 3 equal sections, then we are going to call it thirds. Thirds. So go back to our problem. We have, if I can get to it, thank you, there we go. We have 3 thirds. 3 out of 3. 3 thirds. And what we're going to be talking about next is how that 3 thirds is equal to 1 whole. Okay, and that's the next thing we're going to be getting to, is talking about how 3/3 is equal to 1 whole. Okay, that's kind of the next piece, and I'm going to show you real quick how that is the case. So I'm going to put a fraction bar up here on the screen. All right, and I'm going to put, there it is, 3 sections, there's thirds, and then I'm going to put a fraction bar of 1 whole right underneath it, if I can. There we go. All right, so I put 2 fraction bars up here, and this is kind of our next thing. I'm just kind of whetting your appetite here, getting you kind of ready for what's coming next. But what we have done is we have taken 3/3 right here and said that 3/3 equals 1. Well, look down here, y'all. This is 1/3, this is 1/3, and this is 1/3. If we add those all up, or if you look at them, 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 3/3 equals 1 whole. And that's what I'm showing you here in our picture. And that's where we're moving towards next. So I want you to go back and rewatch this video, especially because we're starting to talk about more and more about what these fractions are, and thirds and halves and fourths and new words. And I just want to let you know that growth mindset is so important when we talk fractions. All right, I didn't say this at the beginning of the video, and I apologize, but make sure that you have the right mindset when we're doing this. Be okay with the struggle. Be okay with the challenge. Be okay with messing up. Be okay with having to erase a lot. Be okay with that, because fractions is new a lot of times, and it's going to take a lot of practice, and it's going to take a lot of failing. It's going to take a lot of messing up. That's just because you don't know it yet. You don't know it yet. You're gonna know it. It's gonna take some hard work. It's gonna take some practice. Be okay with the struggle. Keep watching our videos. Follow along with us. Get yourself a notebook. Get yourself a whiteboard and markers, whatever it's gonna take. But I am so excited that you are joining us on this journey. Thank you so much for watching this video. As we continue this series, make sure you click the like and subscribe button. We're going to continue making math understandable and challenging. Reach out to me on my email, on my socials. I'd love to hear from you, what you're getting stuck on, what you're understanding, any ways that I can help. Reach out. Thanks so much for watching this video. We've got more coming for you very soon. Mr. C, out.